From Krypton Radio and the creators of the Hangin' With Web Show, it's the legend of the Traveling Tardis. Look inside and behind the scenes at some of the most enduring and beloved science fiction worlds. Step inside the doors to a world that is bigger, brighter, and beyond imagination. And now, join your host, Christian Basel, as you become a part of the legend of the Traveling Tardis.
Hello again, fellow Whovians. This is Christian Basel, and you're listening to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show here on Krypton Radio, or iTunes, or Spreaker, or any of one of those many platforms that you may be listening to. For those of you coming back, thank you again for listening to us, and for those of you just joining us, welcome. You got a little treat today, because we are going to be reviewing the Witchfinders. Yeah, okay, what am I? I was hoping for some Witchfinders.
Yeah, Witchfinders.
The Witchfinders. The Witchfinders.
Witchfinders.
Yes. Okay. Sure. But I don't want to do this review alone, so I've got some friends back again. I have Miss Melanie Dean, artist. Hello, Melanie. How you doing?
Doing well. Hello, everybody.
I have back fresh from Chicago TARDIS, fresh and ready, Mr. Brian Burress, but you know him as Dr. Freedom on YouTube. How you doing there, Miss Dr. Freedom?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Awesome, brother. Awesome. And returning again, because this is appropriate. This is his field. We're talking again with author of Erie, Florida, and a bunch of other wonderful horror books and things like that go bump in the night. Mr. Mark Muncy. How you doing, Mark?
Ooh, good to see you all again.
Great. But before we begin, as always, we are going to go with the Who Knew News with Sage Gia. Take it away, Sage. I need an intro like that.
I love my intro, yes. We do have preliminary ratings for Witchfinders. It was 5.66 million viewers, which is the fourth highest rated for this past Sunday night, so it's holding steady very much as well as last week. Our next bit of news is the first synopsis and a look at the New Year's special. So we are hashtagging...
Well, hang on 1 second, because I'm sorry, Sage. I just want to go into the overnight viewing figures, because if you guys have been watching Dr. Freedom, he was discussing about the overnight viewing figures, and one of the things I think we've left out of the equation, Doctor, is that it's on Sunday nights as opposed to Saturday nights. So all those people that are coming out into the hate groups going, oh, it's losing the ratings, it's losing its ratings, I also don't think that they equate that it's on a different night, and it's still holding a share audience of almost 30% of the total audience out there at 5.66 million viewers.
Well, also you got to factor in, when it gets to the end of the week, you're going to probably hit about 7.5 million, somewhere around there, right, which is still well above the average from the last few seasons. And that's why I can't figure out for the life of me why everybody's saying there's been this huge, massive drop and decline in the ratings, especially when you go back and look over the history of the show. Eccleston lost 4 million over the course of his season. I think Tennant lost like 3. I know Matt Smith lost a few million here and there. And there was also an instance where I believe during the Capaldi era, they lost 2 million viewers in between 2 episodes. I can't figure out for the life of me why a decline of maybe 2.5 to 3 million viewers in 8 episodes is suddenly a disaster.
One of my favorite episodes written of the last series was the lowest rated episode, which was actually, it broke my heart because it was written by Rona Monroe, who wrote Survival, the last episode in the series. And I think it was the lowest. I think it dropped to 2. And if we're looking at the rating figures, first of all, I think it's, and anybody wants to jump in on this, I think we're comparing apples and oranges, because you do have a different demographics, you do have a different type of audience that it's now moving to, and I think I'm going to probably say I think this was a safe bet to risk on, because I think with all the competition and such, I think Jodie is pulling in what she can, even though, because I think everybody's going by the gold standard what David Tennant was, the night that he pulled on the Voyage of the Damned, which was 13 million people. I think everybody's expecting that, but I don't think it's I don't think it's realistic. And of course, yes, everybody doesn't count the times going past Matt Smith in the later season, and most of Capaldi's, the ratings were just teetering down. And I think Jodie's pulling her own weight. Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people forget is back when Voyage of the Damned aired, online TV viewing and all that, especially I believe BBC iPlayer and all that, was still going through the motions of getting set up and all that. So a lot of people watched it actually as it aired because you didn't have as many options back then as you do now. So I think that factors in as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think BBC Player was not being equated into the ratings, so it kind of was kind of a missed out. I don't think was it or was not. I think they weren't.
Well, what happens is one of the big arguments out there is they're saying, this is one of my favorite conspiracy theories, is that they made up this new rating system to bring in new viewers. It's like, no, the new system was already in development back during the latter part of Series 10. It's just it didn't get implemented until around this time because they were still setting it up. So this was always going to happen where they were going to start factoring in, more of the online views. So it's been in the motions for a while now. So
okay, gotcha. Sage, I'm sorry to cut you off of there. Go ahead and continue on. But that was an important part I wanted to clarify because the haters are still kind of going, we told you so. And I said, I don't think that's all the pudding's out there in the recipe yet. So.
All right. Well, let's see. Hashtag Who Year's Day. See what I did there? All right. So they have released the synopsis. The terrifying evil is stirring from across the centuries of Earth's history, and the Dr. Ryan, Graham, and Yaz return home, and will they be able to overcome the threat to planet Earth? And everyone is talking about the photo that was released about that scarf. The awesome, colorful scarf, which is incredibly reminiscent of Tom Baker's Fourth Doctor. Don't you think?
What do you guys think of the scarf? Melanie, definitely... You got to take it.
I want it. I want it now.
I'm going to take it from Melanie.
You take my money. Give it to me.
Yeah, $80.
That's true.
Yeah,
okay, so maybe
Melanie, can I go? We can go in half and half, and she can wear it half the time, and I'll wear it half the time.
Yes. Perfect.
Well, all I got to say is good luck, because a viewer put on my comment box earlier that they tried clicking on the link to get it, and it was already sold out.
Oh.
So hopefully they'll be making more.
Oh, I'm sure.
It looks really good with
to go on Etsy.
Ooh, Etsy, that's a good idea. Well, you know what? I have more news, speaking of Tom Baker. Yeah. BBC Books, they announced the publication of Scratchman, which was written by Tom Baker, and it's a Doctor Who novelization. And it's supposed to be released in January.
Now, for those of you not familiar with Scratchman, Ian Marter, who played Harry Sullivan, and Tom Baker were coming up with this idea of having a movie production. They were going to get Liz Sladen in to do their roles in a movie production, and the bad guy was going to be Vincent Price. But I think something happened, or there was a writer's strike, and it just did not come through. So to see this novelization happen, because I think somebody said that this novel was found, or they found the information.
I think it was something like Tom Baker, uncovered it, and he's doing the audio version as well.
Yep.
Okay, I'm very interested. I would have loved to have seen Vincent Price in a Doctor Who movie episode, but that would have been cool. But what do you guys think of Scratchman coming out? I'm excited. I want to see this, especially if he's going to do the audio.
Oh, yes, hideous scarecrows. That'll be fun.
As an author and a person who hangs out in a bookstore way more than I should, there's I've had this renaissance of Doctor Who novels in the last year where they brought back the Target books, where they did novelizations of the more recent episodes. Actually had Russell Davies and a few others writing books again. Was very cool, and this is just icing on the cake. I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to giving it a listen, when it does come out in audiobook format, because, Tom is such an excellent narrator and whatnot. Plus, I'm looking forward to hearing, exactly, just what him and Ian Marter came up with, and it's just got me a little excited,
Absolutely. And you know who I would love to be the bad guy in this one, since we can't get poor Vincent unless they're trying to emulate the voice. And it's only happened once. I want David Warner to be the bad guy in Scratchman. That's just my take.
A lot with Big Finish. It wouldn't be hard to get him.
No, and he's actually been they butted heads before in an episode. I think it was the Sands of Time or something like that, or I think that was the episode.
Yeah, he played a villain in a short series, with Big Finish versus Tom Baker. So it'd be really nice to hear him come back and do a villain again.
That'd be wonderful, wonderful. What else we got on the news stage?
Well, speaking of Big Finish, Billy Piper is returning for a new Doctor Who audio spinoff. It's Rose Tyler, The Dimension Canon. And it follows Rose's journey through dying parallel worlds, and that's going to be released in September of 2019. So they are now working on the 4-episode series.
Which was actually, if anybody remembers back when, Russell T. Davies was kicking the idea around to have Rose Tyler be a spin-off. And it was going to follow her journeys into the other dimension. And I think it was called Rose Tyler, Defender of Earth, or Defender of the Universe, or something like that.
It was Defender of Earth.
Defender of Earth? That would have been exciting. But now I guess we get to actually see it. I wonder what's going on with alternate Doctor at this one in the parallel universe.
Well, from what I understand, I think this series is going to take place prior to Turn Left.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's titled The Dimension Canon. I believe she mentioned that in the series, is that's how they were apparently traveling around, between the parallel universe, where they found out, the stars were dying in each of them. Or going out, I mean.
Right. What do you guys think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say is I'm really looking forward to seeing like the whole dimension hopping Rose, because here you saw her trying to get to the Doctor throughout the 10 and Donna's kind of arc, where she kind of show up here and there. So I think it would be kind of really neat to see a little bit more of the backstory of the last time we saw Rose. She was crying on a beach, and next time we see her, she has this massive freaking gun, and people are just things are happening all around her. There's the fireworks and all that fun stuff, and she's not batting an eye. So it's kind of neat to go, all right, I'd like to see a little bit of how she became more of a badass Rose Tyler.
I just love it when the companions become badass, because Rose Tyler came back into our dimension. In our dimension, she had a gun. When Mickey Smith is running around with his wife, Martha Jones, he's got a gun. and Rory is standing on the cyber ship and watching other cyber ships blow up around him. I'm like, I love it when the companions all of a sudden come back and get a little kick-ass, and they learn something, and they become more than they were expected when they started off first in the story there. Sage, what else we got in the news?
That is my news, so we can get to the show.
All right. But before we get there, Dr. Freedom, tell us a little bit about, and folks, if you're not familiar with Chicago TARDIS, they've been doing it for double-digit years. It's a Doctor Who convention in Chicago that takes place normally around, and this is the hardest part for me, they do it around Thanksgiving Day weekend. And it's, to me, it's time with the family, but I guess if you're with Whovian families up there, it's a different story altogether there. But tell us a little bit about your adventures, Dr. Freedom, at Chicago TARDIS.
Well, the hardest part was getting there. Oh, it's about a 4-hour drive away from here, but we were very lucky. The weather was good. It was a very nice, warm, friendly environment. It was very well organized, very relaxed. That's what I loved about it the most. You didn't have, security guards following anybody anywhere. Like, we were just sitting there at the restaurant the one night. Next, we look up, there goes, Wendy Padbury. There goes, Fraser Hines. And then you turn around and, like, the next morning at breakfast, we turn around, there sits Pearl Mackie. And I'm like, okay. And then, like, there's no security patrol. What's going on here? I'm like, but what I loved about it, was the atmosphere. It was just very, very friendly, very well organized. Just to give you an example, Jenna Coleman was supposed to appear. And less than about 48 hours before the con was due to start, she canceled. Apparently there was some reshoots or things like that had to be done. And boom, they didn't even bat an eyelash, and they replaced her with Katrin Stewart, who you remember as Jenny Flint from the Paternoster Gang, and Ingrid Oliver. Like that, boom, boom. So these guys were right on the ball. Everything ran pretty smoothly. They had the occasional star show a bit late to a panel, but, that happens.
Right.
But like I said, I just loved it. The camaraderie, everybody was friendly to each other, or to quote Peter Capaldi, just kind, I think was the best way to describe it. It was our first time there, and it was an amazing experience, and we'd love to go back, weather permitting and travel conditions and things like that for next year.
Gotcha. I'm hoping they at least get it out Thanksgiving weekend, because I could really want to go up there. But folks, speaking of Thanksgiving Day break, What a segue. We're going to take a break. We've got to pay some bills. When we get back, we're going to do our review of this week's episodes, The Witchfinders. Stay logged on, stay tuned, and continue to become part of the legend.
It's Germany, 1938. Charlotte is a 15-year-old girl living in the Jewish quarter. George lives in the city proper, and enamored by Charlotte's charm and grace when she wanders into his cobbler shop, George decides right then and there that he is going to marry her. Follow along as this unlikely couple struggles to stay one step ahead of the Gestapo and their dramatic escape from Nazi Germany. Good things always happen in springtime, from author Joanne Fisher, on Amazon.com today.
Channeling the Mothership is an exciting journey into the higher mysteries. Certified psychic medium and clairvoyant Jerry McDaniel's readings, writings, and messages have been received by thousands of people in more than 45 countries. These messages have been obtained by channeling his higher self. How does he do it? Is it a blessing or a curse? And what lay beyond the reach of your five senses? These mysteries and so much more are examined in this explosive book, Channeling the Mothership. Explore the mysteries of the spiritual and the metaphysical. Channeling the Mothership by author Jerry McDaniel. Available on Amazon.com today.
Hi, I'm Cosplay Michael with the Hanging with Web Show, and you're listening to Krypton Radio. And remember, cosplay's for everyone.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back. Welcome back, fellow Whovians, to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show. I'm here with my guest, Melanie Dean, author Mark Muncy, and Dr. Freedom himself, Brian Burgess. Today, we are going to be reviewing The Witchfinders. So for those of you who have not seen the episode, please pause, put this on hold, listen to it later, because we're going to be diving into it in a big spoiler way. Folks, for those of you who may be just joining us for the first time, how we rate the show and how we're going to handle our panel is that our panelists are going to go around the circle, give us a number, 1 being bad, 10 being good, and the lowest person on the totem pole will get to start the review. So, Melanie, we're going to start off with you. Rating between 1 and 10, what do you give it?
I'm going to give The Witchfinder a 7.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that, 7 you said?
7.
Mark, what do you give it?
I give it an 8.
An 8.
Yep.
And Dr. Freedom, what do you give it?
Well, I'm going to stick with my original rating. I gave it on the Omega Files this week, and I gave it an 8.5.
8.5, 7, and 8. And, of course, I'm going to hold my number. Sage knows what that number is, but what is going to transpire in a few moments is to see if any of these 3 panelists are going to change my mind, either lower or raise the number. And we're going to tell you my 2 numbers at the very end there. So, 7, Melanie, what happened?
I was going to give it an 8, but then I waffled.
You waffled?
I waffled.
So why did you waffle? Why did you give it a 7?
Okay, the one thing that one, above all else, I really did like this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. I finally got to the point. I think the reason I waffled a little is because I'm kind of giving myself this pass where when I go into the show, I'm not going to have any more expectations anymore. I would just entertain me. I'm going to be a Roman emperor, entertain me. And they did. I just had a lot of fun watching this one. At first, I wasn't sure about King James showing up, because I think that's probably why I kept having like my eyebrow in the raised position a lot of time when he was on screen. Not saying that Alan didn't do an amazing freaking job. Oh my God, I loved it. But I just kept having those little things of, are you really the king? Are you really King James? Are you really? Because I was kind of wondering, is there going to be a face turn? Who's going to be the face turn? And I wasn't expecting who the woman, I can't remember her character's name. I wasn't expecting her to have the face turn towards the end. So all in all, I thought it was a really solid episode. I really liked this one. I think it's one of my favorite ones since the beginning of the 13th run.
Okie dokie there. And I think is that Becca Savage you're talking about?
Yes, that was it, Becca.
Okay.
Becca.
I just think it's funny that she had Miss Savage on there. So my 8 went to Brian?
Oh, I had an 8.5. So
8.5. Okay, Mark, you had the 8. What?
I had the 8. Yeah.
Go for it.
I think the good, of course, like was just spoken, Alan Cumming as King James the First, with and even the little ties to some of his history with demonologies, his little book popping up there for a few seconds. I like the idea. A lot of people I was reading on message boards, were a little thought it was dodgy that he's kind of flirting with Finn, who I can never remember that character's name.
Ryan.
Thank you. I just still call them Finn and yeah. But anyway,
understood.
Yeah, but a lot of people were upset about that, but that's kind of got some history behind it, where he supposedly had a bunch of male lovers, especially George Villiers, who he elevated to the Duke of Buckingham and all that. So I thought that was just, the camp was perfect. My only thing that kept this out of being like one of the top, I mean, it was definitely the best episode I think they've done this season. Mm-hmm. My only thing that kept it out of the upper end was the sudden twist alien ending that just popped up out of nowhere. Throw that in the last 10 minutes and let's, kind of make you resolve the mystery again. It was very Scooby-Doo, and I was a little disappointed in that.
And I want to elaborate on that. Do you feel like that's... And he didn't write the episode. I think it was Sally, and I can't pronounce her last name. But I've always thought that was more or less like Chibnall's writing, where he just gives you a story, and then all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes, you're like, oh, this is happening. I'm like, wait, what? And I kind of accepted it, and then I didn't. I was like, okay. So where were these guys the whole time we were traveling through time and space? And I'm sure that the Doctor has had to come across the witch trial at some point. Maybe not. But I thought I was like, wow.
And again, I thought it was kind of odd that suddenly she was all like, okay, let's just lock him back in the hill. No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was like, all right, no one's going to drill down here later or anything.
Exactly. You're just like, okay. So, Dr. Freedom, you gave it an 8.5. Tell us the pros and cons about this episode.
Well, I think the scene that really sold it to me, as we got a little bit further along, it was always a great cast, great ensemble, especially Alan Cumming. Come on, this guy's got a pedigree going back probably longer than your phone book, as far as acting awards, nomination, things like that. But what really sold me, I think, was that scene where the Doctor's tied up and they're having that one-to-one conversation right there, where she's literally starting to get to him, and you can see that she is. And then he's like, who the devil are you? And that right there, when they're looking in each other's eyes, bam, I was like, this is just incredible right here. Other than that, like I said, cons, I did feel the ending was a wee bit rushed. They could have, done it. It's like this one was also a bit shorter than the others. I think at 46 minutes.
Do you think it should have been a 2-part episode?
That's one of the things I keep hearing is folks, saying that this might have worked better as a 2-part episode. I can see it.
And then probably it would have been the cliffhanger would have been the Doctor about to be lit up like a charcoal briquette. I would think that would have been interesting. We would probably know that we were coming to that eventually, but.
Oh yeah, just a side note. Yeah, this one was written by Joy Wilkinson, if I remember correctly. It was
you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but once again, it seems like that our incoming guest writers are doing just a wee bit better than the showrunner, as far as I'm concerned.
Which is scary, isn't it? Very scary. Melanie, tell us a little bit more about what you thought about King James, because I think you had some misgivings about the King.
Well, at first, my misgiving was for the King to kind of just show up at this little kind of middle of nowhere kind of village. I think that was my kind of thing. I get that he was in disguise and all that kind of fun stuff, and that this is, I guess, what he moonlights as Batman in his time period. That was the part that just kind of made me go, really? Because I liked that they had the part of the bit of the costuming, what was written along the pantaloon portion. I thought that was really a neat little touch. And it's Alan Cumming, as he kept going and going, and then I realized, yep, this is King James. This is interesting. But no, that was the only thing that just kind of I had that misgiving was whether or not he would be there during this, because it wasn't in London, just for a king to be just out and about with just a handful of guards above, R.I.P. Alonso. But that, that was the only kind of the part that I had an issue with. And again, that was just in the beginning, me trying to formulating the who's the bad guy. That's just how I kind of am wired whenever I watch a show. It's who is it? Because I like having that guessing game. But I agree with everyone else at the end, it's aliens. And this is what happened. And here it is. That I was kind of hoping that would have happened, that would have been revealed maybe a little earlier, and then there would have been more of a kind of a fight between, not a fight, but to resolve that kind of the plot there. I'm trying to think of the right word, and of course it's eluding me. It just seemed rushed from where they ended up showing it or having that reveal towards the end. But I agree also it could have been a good two-parter, because everything in the beginning was just spot on, but it just felt like we had to rush this up a little bit to wrap this up and get it into a nice pretty bow. I will say I was kind of hoping that King James was going to at least take a peek inside the TARDIS, because she had kind of sworn him a little bit of, you can't repeat what you see and all that kind of stuff. And he had, sworn to secrecy, that kind of fun thing. But aside from that, I mean, it was really a solid episode. I really, really liked this one.
Mark, after all this time, after all these episodes, Ryan cannot keep his hands to himself. He's got to touch James. He's got to touch King James's stuff. And I just walked into that innuendo, so I'm going to cut it right there. But
God.
I know you had some talk about that. What do you think about that relationship? Do you think it was a little too much, or do you think it gave us more character and insight on what Alan was trying to portray?
No, like I said, I think it was nice that they brought up a little bit of that, sly bit of history. Here's the guy who rewrote the Bible, the King James version is his, and he started all the witch hunts, and it was like his hobby. So some of that, the historical side, I thought was very, very apropos and very, very good. And like I said, kind of implying that he, was attracted to the Nubian prince was interesting. And I like that this was the first time that this was the first adventure that no other doctor could have done this one, because she couldn't just assume command of the situation. Even James is like, assistant Witchfinder, which I did love that Graham wore that hat through the whole episode, even though he didn't need to. It was just awesome. It was so silly, and I loved it.
Mark, hold that
Price tribute there from Witchfinder General.
Mark, hold that thought for a second, because I'm going to challenge that thought that she could not have been, that it was kind of her episode. She could do it. I understand what you're talking about, the time frame and the mentality back then, but it was something that 13 said that threw me off, and I'm gonna pwn it for past the commercial there. But Dr. Freedom, that psychic paper is just getting way too much. It's like the Sonic now. It's like, I can open any doors, say anything I want to, and I can just stick it in your face. Who gave her the authority? This is weird.
You see, that's the thing I can't figure out. Why would anybody from that time and place see this tiny little document and think it's valid? Because we're talking back then, you had to undo a scroll that was like 50 feet long.
Yeah, exactly.
Prove your credentials. Now you got this little slip of paper.
Not only that, here's the entourage, and she's holding this piece of paper, and here's this woman with a jacket on with a bowl-shaped haircut holding this slip of paper, and I guess everything is okay? Melanie, what is that all about? How did that work out?
I liked how, when they first kind of strolled into the village and nobody's batting an eye at these four people who are dressed extremely differently.
Exactly.
And they're, not, dirty. I guess that would be another big thing. And then I like how she just kind of looks right into, bobbing for apples, and just dunks her head and goes for an apple. And I'm like,
exactly.
Again, hey, food might be scarce at this time.
I'm sure that water was pure. That the doctor has a nice immune system there.
See, I thought that was back to old school Doctor Who. I thought that was a tribute to the old stuff. Where
that's a tribute. But
that was just nobody cared. Nobody said anything.
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was kind of funny, but it was just really.
Exactly.
It made me. I think had more of a comedic feel to it for me to kind of laugh and just kind of keep going along for the ride.
Dr. Freedom, I want to hit the topic about reminding people about messing with history, but we're going to do that after we get back from this break. We're paying more bills. Thank you for joining us, folks. Stay tuned. We're going to be back on the other side. Continue to be part of the legend.
Grab some altitude and adventure together at Pound the Grape. It's all about an adventure above the crowd. There's always something different happening there, from painting to food pairings to dancing. But one thing's rock solid, people sharing incredible wines from around the world. And if that's not what puts Lift under your wing, try their craft beer. Grab some altitude and adventure at Pound the Grape. Find more at poundthegrape.com. Poundthegrape.com. Pour a glass of adventure.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Hello, sweeties. I'm Crystal Moore. I play the Doctor in fan series Doctor Who Velocity. You're listening to The Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show.
That's right. You are listening to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show. Thank you for continuing to listen to us. And for those of you just joining us, thank you. We hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Continuing to review the Witchfinders. Again, if you haven't seen the episode, spoiler alert, we're really diving into this. If you've already heard this episode, you're probably already aware that we're diving into this. So make sure you're watching the episode before you listen to us. But Dr. Freedom, back again, we're coming to that thought process of reminder of not messing with history. And then going back to the Punjab episode with Nan and everything, it's just like, okay, you're either messing with it or you're not. So and the Doctor came up with this mentality back with David Tennant's series, where he goes, I know what I'm doing, and he continues to parrot it, I think, throughout Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi. But what's going on? I mean, are we messing with history? Is this the right thing to do, or are we just, I don't. Well,
I just want to say I couldn't figure it out either, because one second she's telling him not to interfere. The next second, she's diving in the water, and she's
exactly. Guys, if anybody wants to throw in this, because it's still puzzling me how 13 works out there, and I'm just like, okay, don't screw with history, which I think is kind of supposed to be the running gag. Like, don't screw with things, don't mess around. But what do you guys think about this? How Jodie, or I should say 13, is handling things as far as screwing with time?
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yes, that's the perfect. That is the perfect line there. That is. Oh my God, it is.
But I will say that she can really get people out of chains under murky water very quickly. Because when she first jumped in to save the grandma and she got out of those chains quick, I was like, whoa, that was stunning. And then she did it herself. I'm like, okay, so, and then with the little aside of she's used to being, drenched in water because of Harry Houdini. I'm like, okay.
A wet weekend with Harry Houdini. I thought that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that. Not only that, but the Third Doctor has mentioned Harry Houdini, that he's gotten out of things beforehand. I think it was the Planet of the Spiders where he's getting out of something, and he mentions Harry Houdini. I don't think it's the first time he's come across Houdini.
Is it just me, or are they doing a lot of name drops? This was very much Fourth Doctor era, where they just threw name drops all the time.
Yeah, they have.
But that's every Doctor, I think.
Yeah, but I think it just seems more this season. I don't know. I'll have to do some checking.
I'm going to ask a weird question, and because the name was thrown out so much, I just want to get your three takes on this. And I want it not from the perspective of the Doctor, but the perspective of you. So I'm going to start with Mark, because you're good at this. Mark, who is Satan?
Oh, from my perspective, not from Doctor Who universe?
Not from the Doctor Who universe. I'm just trying to get my head around this.
I like what there's a great description of him. I want to say it's either Good Omens or a book like that, where they had just this wonderful description of Satan just being, he was the curious one, and he wanted more knowledge than he was supposed to have, and that led him down a dark path. And that's, to me, that's knowledge is power, and if you get and absolute power corrupts, so absolute knowledge would corrupt.
Dr. Freedom, you want to take a stab at that?
Okay, Satan.
No pun intended.
Thinking about it now. It's kind of weird, because Satan can mean as far as most of us are brought up to believe that this is supposed to be this representation of evil, but at the same time, if you've watched Lucifer, that's on your own thing. But I don't know what to make of that, really. It's just, it was such a different time, and looking back at it now, I'm sorry, you just got me there.
I'm sorry, I just wanted your take because the name was thrown around a lot in there. But I wanted to know what your mentalities were as far as what the deity or the fallen angel. Melanie, what's your take on Satan? Who do you think he or she or what it is?
I think that the concept of Satan is very individualistic in that it depends on your time frame, it depends on who you are, it depends on what you've been through, and then, of course, your philosophy or religious upbringing and background, all that kind of fun stuff. Because in the concept of the show, I liked how anything that was the unknown or anything that therefore could be feared, anything that then on top of the religious text and stuff like that, that was all Satan. There was no real thinking behind it. Do I know something bad's happened? Satan. What is this? Satan. Meanwhile, here today, I have a shirt that says "Not today, Satan," and it's gonna be, it's a little different.
Yeah, exactly.
So to me, that's just like, nope, you cannot, hurt me. I'm having a good day. Not today, Satan. It's different. It's different for everybody and anyone.
Brian, I'm sorry, Dr. Freedom. There was the line that I picked for this episode, and I do know why, but normally I pick a line from an episode that seems to represent the episode. And, of course, we've got Graham as the voice of reason, who turns to Miss Savage and says, "Are you a good person, Miss Savage?" Which was the running ideology through Capaldi's first series. And what I loved about also that the use of King James in here, it didn't become another, was it Patterson from the UK? The Arachnids in the UK is Patterson? Robert Patterson? Our Donald Trump guy?
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't become that. I actually felt bad for King James because we had a character development. We went further into his mentality. And at one point, he was siding with the Doctor. So I kind of like that evolution, that the bad guy can look at both, can come through. And I don't think of King James as the bad guy, or was he? But I do think, was Mistress Savage a good person based upon who she was and what she did?
I think what it was is, classic circumstances. It's some people see things from their point of view, and that point of view doesn't exactly, work out with other people's point of view. And then you could maybe see that person as evil. She's growing up in this time. She's been taught that, witches are bad. This is bad. And then at the same time, you come to find out that, wow, there's a big bit of irony there, because it turns out she was the one who was originally possessed, and she's been trying to hide it from everybody at the same time. So it could have been just, the fact that she was struggling with this possession and trying to keep it thing while trying to be, a good leader of the community. But at the same time, you found out she's the one who started the whole mess in the first place. Right. Just because I don't like the way that tree looks on the hill. I'm like, okay, maybe you should have left it there.
But nobody would have known. But Melanie, nobody would have known that. nobody would have said, oh, it's a bad tree, let's cut it down there. Plus, when we got started to getting the backstory to King James, we started seeing that he had something that was wrong in his life. So is Miss Savage a good person? Is King James a good person? Are they a victim of circumstance?
I think they maybe a little bit of both. That they are a victim of circumstance, because at that time, if you did come out with your fears aloud, then you could have, at least for the female population at that point, you were a witch. Or actually, no, for the males, they were witches too. They would be pressed to death and all that kind of fun stuff. So a little bit of circumstance. No one's going to really. Everything was just so ingrained in societally that if you had any problems or you didn't understand anything, again, it was Satan. You're a witch. You're helping it. You must be doing something to make all the bad things happen to you. It was kind of neat hearing from, at least for the King James, when he was talking to Ryan a couple times. At least the first time when Ryan was asking him a little bit more of his backstory. And even Ryan just kind of laughed a couple times, which you could see James was just kind of, a little aghast on the what's so funny. Meaning, I think because Ryan's a product of his time, where if you hear someone going on and on and on and on like that, you're thinking they're exaggerating, and oops, no, he really wasn't. And then, but the whole good person thing is, I think it's a matter of you can either be a good person or you can become a good person. I think that you just aren't always on one side of that fence. These people, kind of both Becca and him, they kind of go on both. There's a gray area. Nothing really is you're good or bad. I think there was a nice little fat gray area that they both resided in, and maybe she shaded a little more to the bad side with certain things, since she was, kind of murdering people. And then maybe with James, he was playing a little bit more to those lighter shades of gray, especially once he started talking to the doctor. But he never really got out of that gray area when she was trussed up to the tree, because he went ahead and ordered her drowning or her trial.
Right. But Mark, now I come to Willa, who has been a victim of circumstance. But my question to you is, based upon her circumstances, if you were Willa, would you have fought or would you have run away?
That's an interesting question. As someone who's done a lot of research on witchcraft recently, actually looking for a legendary witch up in Brooksville in Florida recently, some of the stories like that, you wonder. I mean, they were healers, they were midwives, they were wise women, and they were targeted. And, and if your grandmother's gone and that's all you got, what do you do? And, and in that time, there was no ladder to go up or anything to do. And, I don't know. I thought it was, pretty crazy that she turned on the doctor there for a second and turned her in, especially in the face of the zombies. And, yeah, I don't know. I think in her shoes, I don't think she had much choice.
And the last
I did like how I was going to say is I did like how towards the end there Willa did kind of scream how she was afraid. So you could see she was apologetic and she was afraid. But again, I agree with the well, what do you do when you're in that situation? Do you fight or flight? And when you're stuck you can't run, well, this is the way you're going to run from it. You're going to have to point your finger to another person. In this case was the doctor.
In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
The Hanging with Web Show Radio Hour on Krypton Radio, bringing you the very best in pop culture talk radio. Each Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, the Hanging with Web Show radio hour with your hosts G.W. Pomacher and Christian Basel, who are hanging with rising pop culture newcomers as well as superstar icons. The Hanging with Web Show radio hour. Tune in Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Who are you hanging with?
Well, hopefully you're hanging out with us, the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show. My name is Christian Basel. I'm your host. I'm here with my panelists Melanie Dean, Mark Muncy, and Brian Burress. You know him better on YouTube as Dr. Freedom. And Dr. Freedom, I was holding this question to the other end because we're talking about the alien in the room, the Morax. What do you think of the Morax as a plot device and as aliens as the wrap-up of this story to this episode?
Zombies are always good. I'm not gonna, I have to admit that. I'm a big fan of the zombie genre. Okay. So, even though in this case we had reanimated corpses being influenced by these creatures, I still thought it was a very nice effect. It was very chilling. It made them that much more scary. That you've got people now coming after you. Ooh, that just really chilled me.
So what do you think, Mark? Do you think we should have seen more of the Morax, maybe seen them like walking around in the background and given a more explanation that might have helped the story push what was going on over there, had bigger stakes? As a story writer, I kind of like that those teasers earlier on would have been good, like something about the vines or something about being afraid of the forest or something like that would have been just a throwaway line like that. They were just talking about the crops failing and stuff like that. Could have said, unnaturally, murky swamps, bogs appearing, something like that would have, right. Suddenly we've got an ethereal threat there. And the fact that they just suddenly show up, we got zombies and an ultimately forgettable zombie, I was a little disappointed. I would have liked to have seen them do something. I know they were pretty gruesome looking and it was a great effect. I'd have liked to have seen them try to turn somebody or actually turn somebody. Mm-hmm. So that way it would have been a more immediate threat. But well, they kind of did with Miss Savage, but if you want to count that, 36 weeks of killing witches, so that's a long time to turn somebody. Gotcha, Melanie. What do you think of the Morax as the baddies, or at least the aliens in this episode?
One thing that I go back. Two things I found intriguing about the Morax. First one was when the doctor scooped up a little bit of mud, and you could see it was like pea-sized because it was in that little thing. And then when, Grandma decided to kind of reanimate and come back, towards her, it's like, I kind of wondered, did you really only were missing that one teeny tiny little bitty bit of that? You really, there was, that kind of made me go, whoa, how many Morax are in this, what's the square footage of Morax to mud? I like to know that kind of ratio. But the other thing that I found kind of cool with these guys is that the 4 or 5 of them, how many ever there was, when they started going back to Becca's house, mm-hmm. and, Graham, Yaz, and Ryan are all kind of hiding, like, oh, God, what are they coming here? What are they doing? And they go in there and they get the axe. Why did they go for that one axe? Was it because that was the axe that Becca done, she's the one that, she used it to, break apart the tree? What was the significance of having that one axe that she then hid underneath her bed? That was the other kind of thing that it made me wonder why the axe? Why the axe? I need to know. And it appears that you can take Frankenstein out with fire. Or burn them. That was cool. I'm like, okay. I thought that was cool. I liked how it was that James ended up, setting her on fire at the end. And even then, when the doctor kind of gave him the, the stink eye of, you're not supposed to, the background of how the whole jazz behind the doctor does not like killing people. But then on this kind of end game, I'm going, what was your end game? What have you done with Becca? I'm assuming that was the queen or just a follower or whatever Morax was in Becca. What would you have done with them? Were they did not simply look like they were going to go back into the ground. So I kind of like that James took her out. I was like, yay. I have a question.
Basically, I have a question for our most senior, meaning all of our classic Whovians. Because I knew somewhere along the way, I didn't think it was going to be possible without the Doctor's gender coming into, for a better term, its social downfall because of the time frame and the mentality back then. Now, it was 13's line that I'm holding her, for a better term, basically to the fire, that she said that if I was a bloke, I wouldn't have to explain any of this. How quickly in amnesia we're going to be going back to the Third Doctor and the Daemons when the Third Doctor was accused of being a witch and they were going to set him on fire.
Yeah. I had forgotten that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I sat there and went, Daemons? They did this to you when you looked like B. Author and you were in the smoking jacket. They tied you up and they were going to burn you. So I meant, and in the way that it looked like the line was edited in, it just looked like that line was written and thrown in somewhere. So if anybody wants to correct me if I'm wrong, or am I missing out on something that it kind of, I understood where she was going. She was verbally trying to throw a punch, but then I had to sit back and go, wait a minute, you were accused of a witch before and you were almost burned at the stake. So, hey sister, what gives here?
I took it as more of that. I took it as more as that she was just, if were she as Tennant or Capaldi or any of the more recent Doctors flashed that psychic paper and you are what you are and nobody questions you and you take charge of the situation, you take authority. And I think she was more upset that it wasn't working. And that's what I took that as instead of a throwback to that. But man, you're right. I had completely forgotten that detail.
Well, not only that, but even when he was a bloke, he had to explain things. I mean, I'm trying to pull episodes out of my head, but I meant the Doctor's daughter. That's something I pull out. He was explaining about what was going on around him. He's a bloke, and he's explaining, and he's showing, and he's trying to demonstrate it. In the end, what happens? His daughter gets shot.
Yeah.
It took the daughter to get shot because he's explaining what's going on, but nobody's listening to him. It's not the first time this has happened to the Doctor. Male or female, I get it, but I thought it lost its thunder in my head because I remember the Daemons. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Every time you've tried to explain something to anybody as a bloke or a woman, and they didn't get it, you're still in the game, but it didn't matter what gender you are. If stupidity and ignorance are going to come out, no matter what gender you are. So I get it, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think she may have been referring to the fact that at this point in history, women were not treated as equals around that time. And maybe she felt that maybe if she had been a bloke in this particular situation, it might have had a little bit more impact.
Yeah, I think the fact that if she had been a bloke, I think her being female added to the problem of them not listening. So maybe as a male coming out, there might have been more, heads turned to agreeing maybe, but then having the added weight of being female made it almost damn near impossible.
Okay. I mean, I was throwing that out there because I was like, wait, this has happened before.
Oh yeah.
And wow. Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm looking at your case and I saw it from that perspective, and that's but I didn't see her address the time frame. Mm-hmm. But again, maybe that was something that was not couldn't have been part of the dialogue. It would have been too lengthy. My God, if I was a bloke, you guys would be listening to me. And I kind of got it what you got, but I just remember it was just like, no, this has happened to you before. Mm-hmm. and you almost got torched for it like a charcoal briquette there. One thing that kind of got to me, Melanie, was Yaz talking to Willow about depression and bullying?
I read it as that she was talking about, honestly, about more so bullying, and then yes, I agree with the depression aspect of it, and that how when she had even said that she used that year she went through hell, which then she had to kind of reword it, going no, meaning it was bad, because Willa thought, oh my God, you literally went through hell. No, that's, again, language of the times. Don't use the heavy stuff. She's like, which I thought was kind of a neat little thing, too. But no, I think she really was talking about the weight behind bullying, and that weight is depression.
That it was just a one-liner in there, but it spoke volumes to me, Mark. It really, I just kind of like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was just a few lines, but I think I was starting to get what Yaz was starting out over there, and I felt bad because it seemed like the only thing Yaz offered.
Again, I think it was this was at least a much more subtle message of anti-prejudice, this time against gender. And, because this season has hammered that home. If we've picked up nothing else this season, it's racism and prejudice is bad. And I like that this episode was a little more subtle about it, but still got the message home.
Got it. Dr. Freedom, final thoughts on this episode before we wrap up the episode for the Witchfinders.
Okay, final thoughts on the episode. Like I said, very well structured from the beginning. It was very, very well done. The setting, the location, the costumes, all just, incredible. But then you get towards the end and you get into a bit of a rush, and that's where you kind of lose things, in my opinion. So other than that, it was a pretty good episode to me.
Mark, what did you think of this episode? Final thoughts on this?
Final thoughts, I thought it was very well done. Alan Cumming for the win in anything. Definitely. I remember about 5 minutes into the episode, my daughter was like, "Hey, isn't that Nightcrawler?" And I loved it.
I said so fast, but I won't hold that against him now.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic, and like I said, this was a definite pendulum swing in the right direction for me. This was an episode that I'm like, okay, we've had 2 in a row that have kind of ticked up. I'm happy now.
Gotcha, Mel. What is your final thoughts on this episode?
Final thought is that this was like a really incredibly well-written episode. Again, it's kind of that, oh, look, it's not Chibnall's writing, and to echo what Mark was saying, the previous episode wasn't a Chibnall either, and so far those are my 2 favorites, and if I had to go to anybody at a convention and say, hey, I haven't watched anything of Jodie yet, what would you say? And I would point them to this episode or even the previous one and go, these ones are really good episodes to get you in on the Doctor.
Sage, what was my number?
You were at a 9.
And I'm going to hold that number right at the end of this episode. After the talking, I think I parroted pretty much everything that you had grievances about this episode. But yes, if I'm going to introduce Jodie Whittaker's Doctor to Doctor Who, and I wanted to bring them in, I think I finally found the episode that I could bring them into. This was fun. This wasn't. It just had the right amount of Who that I've been looking for since the first episode. And I wish this was like episode number 2, because this would have gotten me very excited about what was going on, and it just seemed like there was a long, drawn-out thing for, it got too PC, it got too political, it got too weird, it got too American politics. But here was an episode that just had the right amount of everything, that I think it developed the characters. At first, I thought Alan Cumming was just getting over the ham part of King George. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. God, I can't get my King James, but it worked. It absolutely worked, and not only that, but when it got to the part where Ryan and King James are alone talking to each other, and King James is just surrendering all this information, I felt bad for him. Mm-hmm. I knew I felt bad just as much as Willa, because they were victims of circumstances, of their time, of their place, and this is the decision. Are they good and bad? I have no idea. But these are the choices that they made. And these are things that I think make the characters on Doctor Who. Whatever circumstances that they've chosen and how they become better people, just like the companions, just like Rose Tyler, just like Rory, just like Mickey, when they evolve into something wonderful and incredible. And I got to give this a 9, a solid 9 all across the board, because, like I said, this should have been a 2-parter. The bad guys, the aliens are a little thrown in there, and I think they could have embellished it. But I finally got an episode that I want to share with people. And speaking of sharing, folks, please check out, today is actually December 1st. If you're listening to this as it drops, This is the first day of the 25 days of The Legend of the Traveling Tardis Christmas. We've got music videos, we've got movies, we've got pictures from classic and new stuff for the Traveling Tardis going around in all of his holiday garb all over the Hooniverse and our universe. Please check it out. Go to Facebook.com/The Traveling Tardis. You can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Twitter. You're going to love what you see, folks. I'm glad you guys stick around with us. I want to thank my panelists, Melanie Dean, Mark Muncy. Check out Melanie Dean. If you see her at a convention, check out her art, Mark Muncy, Erie, Florida, and all of his wonderful horror books that I love to read out there. And definitely don't forget to go on YouTube and check out Mr. Brian Burress for Dr. Freedom. Subscribe, like, whatever you do, you're going to love. He drops an episode every time something happens in the Hooniverse. So, folks, thank you for joining us. And now it's time for a little preview of the next episode, It Takes You Away. Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for becoming part of the legend.
Norway. Definitely Norway. Soil? A cottage in winter with a chimney but no smoke. What's got you so scared?
It takes you away. It takes you away.